Oh, I think it's so very important that we understand that probably the nation's second most important court, right under the Supreme Court of the United States, is the Circuit Court of Appeals. The Second Circuit has traditionally had among the most outstanding jurists. The fact that someone from a small town, so to speak, Columbia County, can rise to the level of a circuit court judge, that we seek out the best, that they're not necessarily just the Wall Street law firms, and you don't have to be Skeffington Jr. III from Princeton or Harvard, but if you are skilled in the practice of the law, a man of integrity, a man of quality, a man of compassion and concern, who has the legal scholarly ability that this nation still affords the opportunity for people to become the highest and the best. This indeed may not be the last spot for Roger Minor. He was among my first nominees to the federal bench. He was my first to the circuit court. Let me suggest that my committee, which has former Attorney General Rogers as one of its members, among other outstanding former jurists and people who have served in the Justice Department, selected him unanimously in their recommendations to the President, both for the initial federal judgeship and for the Second Circuit. And his record and his achievement and his standing with his peers was such that Washington found a treasure and literally moved him with great speed and alacrity, something which is not known for Washington. So I think the story is the story of a young Jewish boy from a small county, small town, who showed that the American dream is alive and well, and that given your abilities, that you can rise to the top. That is quite a story, and that's the continuing wonderful saga of America.
Do you have any projections yourself as to where Judge Minor might go after this? And what do you foresee?
In my opinion, Judge has the kind of temperament, scholarly ability, is very self-effacing, and he continues to win the accolades of the legal community, both his peers and those who practiced before him, that he indeed might at some point in time be selected by whether President Reagan or another president. As he's the kind of caliber that could take him to the Supreme Court of the United States.
I appreciate you coming, and I think it's a great day for Albany and this whole North Country. I know.
He started out as the corporation counsel for the city of Hudson. Today, he became a judge on the second highest court in the land, the U.S. Court of Appeals. 500 people were on hand as Roger Minor was sworn in by his 81-year-old father. Pam Carter has the story.
I'm about to end, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. So help me God.
Federal District Court Judge Roger Minor is now a member of the second highest court in the land, the Circuit Court of Appeals. Through the recommendation of U.S. Senator Alphonse D'Amato, President Reagan nominated the Hudson native for the elevated judicial position.
Here, in this magnificent land, can we see a young man grow, flourish in the community of Hudson, to assume this responsible position.
Not only is Judge Minor the first resident of Hudson to serve on the circuit bench, he also is the first circuit judge to be chambered in Albany. Judge Minor will serve New York, Connecticut, and Vermont. As for who succeeds Minor as federal district court judge, Senator D'Amato suggests Rensselaer County Supreme Court Justice Konchalakis, who said he was honored but not ready to decide just yet.
We have no response at this time.
Are you going to make a decision sometime soon?
Sooner or later.
For the 52-year-old Judge Minor, there's no doubt of what his future holds now. His comments were punctuated by humor and assurance.
To my new colleagues, I pledge my loyalty and esteem, as well as my respect for the traditions of the court and the principle of collegiality. I reserve the right to dissent, however. To all of you, I pledge to do whatever is necessary to merit your confidence, to be worthy of this great court, and to assure justice for all, the brightest promise of this golden land. Thank you.
Pam Carter, TV 10 Action News, Albany.
your attention, you shall be heard. God save the United States and this honorable court. The Honorable James L. Oaks presiding. You may be seated. The court is now in session.
Good morning and welcome. The Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit convenes an extraordinary session today in the New York State Capitol for the happy purpose of inducting Roger J. Minor as the 53rd appointee to the court in the 116 years since Congress provided for judges exclusively assigned to circuit courts. As acting Chief Judge today, I take great pleasure in welcoming him on behalf of all of my colleagues who join in sending him best wishes. It should be noted that present today here in Albany are the following judges: former Chief Judge of the Northern District of New York, Jim Foley, Chief Judge Howard G. Munson, and Judge Neil McGurn, also of the Northern District. Sitting in the audience, our former Chief District Judge of the Southern District of New York, David Edelstein, Judge Lee P. Gagliardi, now of Vermont, but who will be assisting the Northern District here in Albany, and Judge Charles L. Bryant, also of the Southern District. We are also honored by the presence of Justice Leonard Weiss of the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court and Judge Joseph Gagliardi, New York Judge. We are also honored and pleased to be joined by the distinguished United States Senator from New York, Alphonse D'Amato, without whose advice and consent these proceedings could not have taken place. And two congressmen, Gerald B. Solomon and Hamilton Fish Jr., friends of the Minor family. The state and national bar associations are well represented here today by Justin Vigdor, president of the New York State Bar, and Ralph Lancaster Jr. of the American Bar Association's Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary. More important, perhaps, we welcome, of course, Judge Minor's effervescent wife, Jacqueline, and their sons, Lawrence, Mark, Ronald, and Ralph, to our court family. We also welcome Judge Minor's brother, Lance, and most especially his father, Abram. What a joyful way to celebrate his 59th year of law practice. We are particularly delighted to induct Judge Minor at this time because his presence will serve to grace our court. His well-known scholarship, his good judgment and keen sense of justice, coupled with his balanced recognition of the fact that individual freedom and liberty carry with them responsibility and duties to others, will all add to our court's stature. Research discloses that Judge Minor is the circuit's first judge from the town of Hudson, although this part of New York State, right across from the Vermont border, so to speak, has produced some of our most illustrious, I come from Vermont, has produced some of our most illustrious judges, including the now legendary Chief Judge Learned Hand and his cousin, Judge Augustus Hand, who came from Albany and Elizabethtown, respectively. This induction is a significant one for the Northern District of New York, of which Judge Minor himself has boasted that it has, and I'm quoting him, the most scenic location, the most colorful bench and bar, and the most significant cases in the Second Circuit. Although Judge Minor is the first emissary from the North in recent years, two of our Northern colleagues other than the Hands have journeyed south to join the Court of Appeals well in the past. Judge William Wallace came to the Second Circuit from this district in 1882 and eventually became its presiding judge. In 1902, he was joined by former Northern District Judge Alfred C. Cox. It is fitting that once again the Northern District be so ably represented. Judge Minor is a distinguished alumnus of New York Law School, the first on our court, I believe. Judge Minor's experience as managing editor of his law review is evident to all who read his carefully wrought opinions. His modest history of the Northern District, delivered a year ago last April before an appreciative audience at the United States Courthouse in Foley Square, covered the period from the Pleistocene epoch to the present and contained over 200 footnotes, further proof of that law review experience. With that sparkling lecture, he has sparked a controversy with Judges Cabranes and Timbers, as well as all the judges of the Southern District, as to whether Connecticut or the Northern District of New York or the Southern District can rightly claim to be the mother court of the Second Circuit. In the interests of harmony in the circuit, and as a Vermonter, I hope that they can speedily resolve this historical dispute. Judge Minor brings to our court a wealth of experience. He continues a long career of public service, beginning in the Army, where he served on the Judge Advocate General's Corps, then as a city attorney for his hometown of Hudson, as assistant district attorney and district attorney for Columbia County, as a state Supreme Court justice, and finally, since September 28, 1981, as district court judge for the Northern District. I may say that we former district court judges now constitute a solid majority on the Court of Appeals, and we're happy about that. In the almost 4 years that Judge Minor has sat on the district court, my colleagues and I have had a number of opportunities to review his opinions. As you would expect, you, his friends and family, we have affirmed the vast majority of them, often, perhaps even usually, on the reasoning he has set forth. We trust that, like the Yankees and the Mets in the next World Series, the forthcoming World Series, Judge Minor will continue to play virtually error-free ball on his new team, though as one whose opinions are occasionally reversed by the Supreme Court, we all know, in Justice Jackson's words, that that court is not final because it is infallible. It is infallible only because it is final. And on the Court of Appeals, we pretend not to more infallibility than other courts composed of the same frail material of which we are composed. We will now hear from several of the people whom I have just mentioned. First, leading off, will be Honorable Howard G. Munson, Chief Judge of this Northern District.
Thank you, Judge Oaks. You'll be happy to hear that I have not prepared any remarks. You also might be happy to hear that I forgot my robe, and I had to borrow one of Judge Minor's, so I am very apt to be correct this morning. I should tell you that one time Judge McCurran borrowed one of my robes and stormed off the bench and said that he'd made 5 quick mistakes, and it was because he had my robe on. In other circuits, on other occasions, I have heard of district court judges being, if I may use the word, elevated to the Second Circuit, or to their circuit, I should say. And some lawyers on those occasions have made remarks such as, well, both courts will benefit. That's not so in this case. I do think that Judge Minor will do an excellent job on the Second Circuit, but he has done an excellent job for the Northern District. All one has to do is look at the statistics and the way that he has handled his job. Judge Minor, I consider a friend. I am sad to see him go. I do not know whether we will be able to get someone to replace him that will be as energetic, as intelligent, and as good as he was at his job. Look at the statistics sometime. And statistics, I know, lie, but in this case, they do not. Judge Minor was a great addition to this bench, and we are very sorry to lose him. I do hope, however, that since he only held this job for 4 years, he has at last found a steady job. I thank you.
Thank you, Howard. Now you can see how helpless judges are without either a spouse or a secretary or a law clerk present, which is the situation that I'm in today, because I overlooked mentioning some of our very special guests in the audience, and it took me, I'm just slightly out of step here. I would like to introduce and recognize for their presence here Thomas Whalen, Mayor of the City of Albany, Reverend Dr. Layman Bruner, Rector of St. Peter's Protestant Episcopal Church of Albany, Gerald Crotty, Secretary to Governor Cuomo, Lawrence Cook, former Chief Judge of New York and a great judge, James Simon, Dean of New York Law School, fine law school, John Furyk, Dean of Fordham Law School, and Jean Girard, the United States Ambassador Designate to Luxembourg. We are delighted that all of you are here, and if I've overlooked anybody else, just chalk it up to the absence of the people that I mentioned. Now, next speaker is Mr. Ralph Lancaster, Jr. of the Standing Committee on Federal Judiciary of the ABA. Mr. Lancaster.
May it please the court, it is my pleasure to be at these ceremonies today representing the American Bar Association's Standing Committee on the Federal Judiciary. The committee consists of one member from each judicial circuit. And if I may digress momentarily, as many of you know, the Second Circuit member is my good friend and that fine lawyer, Bob McCrate. Because of the large number of investigations Bob had to conduct, it was my good fortune to be asked to investigate Judge Minor. The committee has no candidates of its own. Its function is to receive names of prospective nominees from the Attorney General, conduct an investigation of their qualifications, and report the results of that investigation to the Attorney General and to the United States Senate. Since a major portion of the investigation consists of interviews with judges and lawyers, in a very real sense, the committee serves as a conduit of the thinking and the views of the bench and the bar. Those views are communicated directly to the Attorney General and to the Senate. In the case of a sitting federal judge, the investigation consists of a thorough review of the judge's writings, including his written opinions. And again, may I digress momentarily to commend to you the article which Judge Oaks mentioned about the history of the Northern District of New York, which was authored by Judge Minor with substantial research, I might add, by Mrs. Minor. It is a piece well worth reading. In addition to reading all of those written opinions, the investigation includes interviews with judges of this court, interviews with judges of the district court, and interviews with a wide variety of the attorneys who have appeared before Judge Minor. The results are independently analyzed by each of the members of the committee, all of whom share the goal of achieving excellence in judicial appointments. I am very pleased to report that as a result of its investigation, the committee found Judge Minor well qualified for service on this court. And under the committee's guidelines, that means that Judge Minor received the committee's affirmative endorsement as being one of the best available for the appointment from the standpoint of competence, integrity, and temperament, as well as general reputation in professional and community circles. Judge Minor has been an outstanding district judge who will be missed in the trial court, as Judge Munson indicated, both by other district judges whose workloads he alleviated by his legendary capacity for hard work, and by the many lawyers for whom he made trying cases in his courtroom a thoroughly enjoyable experience. As a result of his elevation to this court, he will have the opportunity to dispense justice to lawyers and litigants from other districts as well. On behalf of the American Bar Association, we congratulate Judge Minor on his appointment and extend our best wishes for a long and successful and happy career as a member of this illustrious court.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Our next speaker will be Mr. Justin Vigdor, President of the New York State Bar Association.
May it please the court, distinguished guests and friends and family of Judge Minor, it's a very great privilege for me to be here this morning to represent the 45,000 members of the New York State Bar Association in paying tribute to Judge Minor on this very happy occasion. Mark Twain, whose pungent wit I love, once commented that man was made at the end of the work week when God was very tired. Judge Minor clearly must have been an exception to that rule, because there is no evidence whatever that God was tired at the time. Since I'm under injunction to speak for no more than 5 minutes, and since normally that's how long a lawyer requires for a few remarks before a prepared talk, I am not constrained to review Judge Minor's accomplishments, which are so well known to this audience of friends and admirers. He has had a distinguished career in public service as Corporation Counsel, District Attorney, New York Supreme Court Justice, and District Court Judge. He's had a career in academia as adjunct faculty at Columbia Green Community College and the State University at Albany. He's been active in professional organizations, the American Bar Association, our own New York State Bar Association, American Judicature Society. He has been influential and active in community affairs of all sorts, numerous committees, historical committees, United Way, B'nai B'rith, service clubs of all kinds. To each of these organizations, he has brought his own blend of vitality and talent, and accordingly he has been honored by numerous groups such as his law school, the New York Law School, the Albany Jewish Federation, Columbia County, Elks, Kiwanis, Rotary Clubs, and others. I was delighted to chat with Judge Minor in his chambers before this and to learn that we share a common experience. We both served at roughly the same time in the United States Judge Advocate General Corps, and recounting those experiences were a very pleasant event for me, which made this an even more delightful occasion. I'd like to remind you of something that Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said early in his own judicial career. He said of the law, "What a profession it is. No doubt everything is interesting when understood and seen in connection with the rest of things. Every calling is great when greatly pursued. But what other gives such scope to realize the spontaneous energy of one's soul? In what other does one plunge so deep in the stream of life, so share its passion, its battles, its despair, its triumphs, both as witness and as actor?" Judge Minor has been both a great witness and a great actor. He has given to the law that sort of devotion that a knight gave in legend to a lady and that a devout person gives to his religion, or a great statesman to the principles of his party. As New York State Supreme Court Justice and as District Court Judge, he demonstrated solid intellect, superior judgment, a great love for the law and the role it plays in our society, and a deep respect for the bar and the bench. And now we honor him as he assumes his share of the burdens of the Circuit Court of Appeals, where the number of appeals has increased 8-fold since 1960 and shows no sign of abating. He will be the first Second Circuit judge to be chambered in Albany. The other judges of this district and the lawyers of this district will miss his presence here. I assume, however, that many of the lawyers will not lament the passing of the case conferences at 5 and 6 p.m. on Fridays, however. Long, long ago, Socrates said 4 things belong to a judge: to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. All 4 of these Judge Minor possesses. I would add to these a 5th, to have a sense of humor. And Judge Minor also possesses that. Just last week at the Second Circuit Conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania, he was designated to speak for the new district judges and the new circuit judge. He said, and I quote, "I would like to say that I approach my new responsibilities on the Second Circuit," I was taking notes, "with deep humility, great reverence, and awe. But I won't say it because it wouldn't be true." We know that it is true. And for all of his past accomplishments and for all of his future accomplishments, we of the New York State Bar Association applaud and honor him today.
Thank you, Mr. Vigdor. Our next speaker will be a former colleague of Judge Minor's, Justice Leonard Weiss, New York State Supreme Court, Appellate Division, 3rd Department. Justice Weiss.
If it please the court, I should like to acknowledge the presence of so many dignitaries here, but I'm far. We have known each other for years, but it was during those months of transfer duty in New York City that we became fast friends. Far from our families and homes, with neither an office to work in, nor a book to refer to, nor staff to assist us, we traveled each day from the hotel in Manhattan over to Brooklyn to do the bidding of our chief judge. There on the ground floor of a converted old building on Willoughby Street, we held court in tiny, dirty, dank cubbyholes purporting to be courtrooms, lacking even the most basic ingredients such as drinking water or paper supplies for a bathroom. At noon each day, we'd pause for lunch, usually at the counter of a fast food stand, exchange our experiences of the morning, and speculate where we would eat that night. Except for the night that Mayor Koch felt sorry for us and invited us to eat at Gracie Mansion, it was a challenge to stretch the $25 daily allowance to cover 3 meals. It was in that veritable cauldron of adversity that close bonds of friendship were forged between us. It was then and there that each of us vowed to the other that we would work to find advancement in our careers and that advancement would lead Judge Minor to the federal bench and me to the appellate division of Supreme Court. I must say, however, that when I read last week in the newspaper that Judge Minor had an individual calendar of 868 cases, I speculated whether his advancement had really been for the better. But we all know of his splendid efforts in meeting the challenge of the overwhelming caseload. It is his reward that has brought us together this day. The Supreme Court justices in this judicial district, from whose ranks you did ascend, all take pride in your achievements, Judge. And Judge Oaks, among the many whose names were impossible for you to mention, are several of Roger's colleagues from the 3rd Judicial District who are here today to share in this delight. In September of each year, many events traditionally occur. Vacations are over, schools reopen, baseball pennants tighten, and the football season begins. And it's in September that the news media begins to speculate and project which college star of the year will win the Heisman Trophy, emblematic of the single most outstanding hero of the football year. If a Heisman Trophy were to be awarded to the outstanding jurist, the winner this year would be a runaway. Roger J. Minor is everyone's selection. Senator D'Amato, you're to be congratulated on nominating Judge Minor to the President. Judge Oaks, you and your court are indeed fortunate to gain the addition of this man of unusual talent and experience. And to you, Jackie Minor, congratulations and plaudits are properly due upon your performance as a wife, a companion, and a mentor. Your faith and confidence and support of Roger Minor have been superb. September is always special to me for another reason. Tomorrow will be September 15, 1985, and that corresponds to the last day of the year 5745 of the Hebrew calendar. Monday will not only be September 16, it will also be Rosh Hashanah, commonly called the Jewish New Year. The last day of the year is usually a time given to reconsider the past and to contemplate the future. The past can never be undone. It can only be understood and forgiven. But the future awaits each one of us with promise and with hope. And we stand at the gate of a year marking the transition between yesterday and tomorrow. Isn't it a marvelous coincidence that Monday will not only be the first day of a new year, but in addition it will be the first day in the career of Roger J. Minor as a member of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. As you cross the gateway of your new career, Roger, we know that you pass that threshold armed with knowledge, understanding, patience, and dedication, all of the tools required for the success of a jurist. And we have naught but confidence that the brilliance that you've already exhibited will continue in the years to come. With your indulgence, I'd like to close with a brief thought. Over 2,500 years ago, a philosopher named Plato said that what is honored in a country is what is cultivated there. And many would say that in this country we perhaps have lost perspective of real values and of things that count. And it's perhaps understandable when you pause and realize that a comedian who tells jokes on television can earn almost $1 million a week, while a brain surgeon who permits an 8-hour operation is paid but $2,500. Young athletes sign professional contracts for millions of dollars before they even complete college, while most of their professors in the same colleges earn less than $50,000 a year. A rock and roll singer can earn $20 million for one individual single recording, while the man who wrote our national anthem didn't get 1 penny for that song. What is honored in a country is what is cultivated there. And the question might be asked, are we content with whom we honor in this country? But I submit to you that today, those of us gathered together in this courtroom can answer that question affirmatively. Yes, we are proud to honor Judge Roger J. Minor, and in unison we express our prayers that his years be many, filled with the blessings of the Almighty, that he may continue to walk and to work among us and for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Weiss. The next speaker will be my old friend, and probably of everybody here, Honorable James T. Foley, now Senior Judge, former Chief District Judge of the Northern District of New York. Jim?
All right, Presiding Judge Oaks, my brothers, Chief Judge Munson, Judge Neil McKern, distinguished guests and speakers, Mayor Thomas Whalen, my fellow judges, state, federal, Mrs. Jacqueline Minor, Abram Minor will be a proud man today to swear his son into a new office, and the Minor family, and ladies and gentlemen. You know, this morning I began to feel, well, maybe I should write something out because I realized the importance of this occasion. So I've written it out on yellow sheets, and as Judge Munson just commented, probably I'm going to be unable to read it. So you'll be spared a lot of the statements that I've written out. Also, of course, the previous speakers, batting fifth in this lineup, have said a lot of the things that I intended to say. But as you may imagine, being appointed by President Harry Truman in 1949, I've been on this bench very many times. I've also presided at ceremonies as a district judge because I was the only district judge in Albany, and also as chief judge for 17 years. We had many memorable, impressive ceremonies in this courtroom, and I was always very happy to say that they would continue to be memorable. But today, September 14th, 1985, with this tremendous assemblage of people, dignitaries, public officials, national officers, this will be most memorable and probably be the one that will stand out in our minds for many years to come. The reason is, of course, that one of our own, Judge Roger Minor, has been appointed by President Ronald Reagan to the prestigious United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. I'm sure from my knowledge of him, my observation of him for 4 years, that he is exceptionally well qualified to be a circuit judge. Now today we have, I think, a mixture of sadness and a mixture of happiness. Sadness because an able district judge is going to leave our court, and happiness because he is going to a circuit court bench to which he aspired and upon which I'm sure he will be heard often from as an outstanding judge. Now, as a federal judge, I was often invited to the state courts to participate in ceremonies there. We'd honor a new judge coming in or have a memorial service for departed judges, and it always sticks in my mind that after those services I'd meet my lifelong friend, A. Franklin Mahoney, the presiding judge of the Appellate Division, 3rd Department, and he'd always needle me by saying, "You seem to speak more about yourself than you do about the guest we honor or the judge whose memory we memorialize." And my response always was, I don't see anything wrong with that because they might forget to mention me. So if I speak a little bit about myself, please forgive me. The Court of Appeals, Second Circuit, of course, had one of the most eminent chief judges in the history of the courts, and particularly the history of the United States Court of Appeals, Second Circuit. And that judge was Judge Learned Hand. Books have been written about him. He's been talked about often as a judge that belonged on the United States Supreme Court. Learned Hand was born, raised, and practiced law in the city of Albany for 5 years with the firm of Hunn and Parker. Now, when I was a new judge, 1951, I first met Learned Hand when I went down to the Southern District to help out as a trial judge in the United States Courthouse, Foley Square. When I first met him, Judge Hand asked me, and met him in his chambers, how I was getting along as a district judge. I reminded him that I did not get off to a very good start because he had reversed me on my first appeal in the case involving the dissolution of Niagara Hudson and the consolidation into the present company we have, Niagara Mohawk. Well, when I told him that, he laughed heartily, and he said, "Don't be bothered by reversals." And it impressed me that he had that state of mind, because I know that most judges, although they deny it, are bothered by reversals. He then told me, he said, well, Foley, he always called me Foley, and there was always warmth in his calling me Foley. He said, I get reversed, of course, by the Supreme Court, and he said, I take it out by pounding that table over there and calling them dumb SOBs. So I guess that's what the district judges do often when the learned circuit court reverses them. But Chief Judge Charles Clark sat here on this bench. We had statutory courts. It's been limited now. On this bench, 3 judge courts have sat with Judge Harry B. Chase of the Learned Hand Court. Chief Judge Irving Kaufman has sat here. Chief Judge Feinberg has sat here 4 or 5 times. Thurgood Marshall was here. I sat with him with Judge Brennan. So the court has been prominent in having judges of stature sit on a bench. Chief Judge Clark, and he was the former Dean of Yale, used to always like to say, you know, the judges, the district judges get upset with reversals. But he said, you know, if we affirmed all their decisions, he said some legislators may think that the circuit court is unnecessary and we can give it up. Now to talk about our guest of honor, I met Roger Minor about 5 years ago over in Basil's restaurant. And he was then with several of the Supreme Court judges whom I've always liked and been with often. And I knew when I first met him that he was a personable, decent man, and that he had a warmth about him that could be seen, detected very easily. When he came in this district court, he set up his own procedures and did things, of course, with scheduling orders never been done before. But he moved the calendars. And, of course, a lot of the lawyers would gripe and come in to see me, and I said, well, that's the way it has to be done. The caseload here is staggering, and it has to be kept in pace properly, or everything is going to happen that's wrong. But Judge Minor, of course, is as hard-working a judge as I've ever seen. He's brilliant, and he's a scholar. With the full days in court and the night work he did, I'm sure that he found time always to speak at legal seminars and be accorded the honor, of course, of writing the history of this Northern District of New York. His helpmate in that writing, of course, was Mrs. Jacqueline Minor, and she has her master's degree in history, and it shows itself in that history. I would suggest that all of you, I think it'll be published in the Federal Rules of Decision soon, you should read it. Judge Minor is an able judge. He's going to be a credit to the Court of Appeals, Second Circuit. We're going to miss him here very much. But as he said in his historical article, this district court, started in 1789, will endure. We have 2 able judges here, active, Chief Judge Munson, Judge McKern. We have a well-organized court and good personnel. Things will carry on. All we need is the judicial manpower. I know from speaking to Senator Tomato today, he's going to help us out. So I can also tell you that as far as Senator Tomato is concerned, he should be complimented for recommending Roger Minor to the President of the United States for appointment as a circuit judge. Judge Minor, with his helpmate, Jackie Minor, with his fine father, an able lawyer himself, and his brother Lance, will be a happy man in the work that he's now going to undertake, writing opinions, because he's good at it. They're clear, they're concise, sound, balanced. And he has a sense of humor that I enjoy every day I have lunch with him. So I say to Circuit Judge, he will be shortly, Roger J. Minor, good luck, good health. Oh, Albany, salute you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. Our next speaker will be Honorable Hamilton Fish, Jr., United States House of Representatives, Committee on the Judiciary.
May it please the court, distinguished guests and family and friends of Judge Minor, ladies and gentlemen, it is a distinct honor and a personal pleasure to be with you today to participate in the investiture of Roger J. Minor to the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. As one whose congressional responsibilities and, yes, opportunities include furthering the quality of justice, I am humbled today and yet very satisfied before so much judicial talent that is assembled with us. Judge Roger Minor and his lovely wife Jackie have been friends of mine for over 20 years, and I certainly have very happy memories of those early days in Columbia and Greene County. My respect for Roger stems not only from his obvious professional qualifications and abilities, but also is based on his unquestioned personal integrity. Consequently, when an opening occurred on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, I strongly urged the President and the Attorney General to favorably consider his nomination. And when this nomination was pending before the Senate Judiciary Committee, I joined my distinguished congressional colleagues, Senator Alphonse D'Amato and Congressman Jerry Solomon, in urging quick approval. Judge Minor's career is one of remarkably balanced and thorough legal experience, and although previously mentioned, today it's worth repeating. He has been a practicing attorney and an effective prosecutor for Columbia County. He has been a professor of law and served in the Judge Advocate General's Corps in the United States Army. And of course, as we know, he has served with distinction as both a New York State Supreme Court Justice and as a United States District Court Judge for this, the Northern District of New York. Roger Minor combines a practical, realistic, working knowledge of the law with those distinctive qualities of fairness, industry, and patience so necessary in a superior judge. These qualities and qualifications resulted, as we heard earlier, in the impartial American Bar Association rating of Roger as well qualified for the position he is about to undertake. But while perhaps not all cases are of equal importance, Judge Minor has a reputation as being able to treat each litigant as if their case was the most important pending before him. He is independent, but he is not insensitive. Nearly 200 years ago, the framers of our Constitution wisely decided to establish the federal judiciary as a separate, third, co-equal branch of our federal government. And those wise men recognized that judges could decide cases fairly and effectively in accordance with law only if they were free from undue influence and partisan political pressures. Mr. Justice Sutherland recognized that only through this essential independence can judges remain true to their pledge. This freedom from outside pressure allows a judge to make the necessary tough calls as well as the easy ones. Mr. Justice Sutherland went on to observe, if the provisions of the Constitution are not upheld when they pinch as well as when they comfort, he said, they will be abandoned. By themselves, of course, our Constitution and laws do not guarantee liberty, tranquility, justice, happiness, or prosperity. The judicial branch of our federal government is the final protector of these values, and we need individuals of the highest standards to exercise this pivotal role in our system. And Judge Roger Minor lives up to this important charge. I have every confidence that his future contributions as a judge in this circuit will equal and surpass his already distinguished contributions to the American legal system. My sincerest congratulations to you, Roger, and Jackie, and your sons every good wish to you as you undertake this new challenge, and I greatly appreciate your inviting me to be with you today.
Thank you, Congressman Fish. We will also hear from the Honorable Gerald B. Solomon of the United States House of Representatives, 24th Congressional District. We know where that is.
If it please the court, ladies and gentlemen, Justices all, and Roger Minor, my dear friend, Jackie, and your family, I was indeed honored to be asked to say a few words today, as I am always honored whenever I have the privilege to make some small part in an occasion like this. And this event certainly qualifies as one marking as it does both a great personal achievement and the everlasting glory of our nation's system of laws. And I've always been proud to count Judge Minor among my constituents, among my personal advisors, and among my friends. And it was also with some measure of pride that I had the opportunity not so long ago to testify, as did my colleague Ham Fish and Alphonse D'Amato, before the Judiciary Committee of the United States when they were confirming Judge Minor before the Honorable Strom Thurmond. And at that time, as I told the members of that distinguished panel, I was reminded somewhat of the words of another remarkable American, the late Senator Sam Ervin, one of the greatest and most noted defenders of our Constitution. And Senator Ervin always referred to himself as an old-fashioned country lawyer in a way that showed how proud he really was of his roots in rural North Carolina. And in the same way, Judge Minor, throughout his career, has remained true to his roots in Columbia County. He has also remained true to his community, to his beliefs, and to his family and the highest ideals of justice throughout his years as a district attorney and a state Supreme Court judge, and now a federal judge. And one local newspaper, with justifiable pride, described Judge Minor's career as meteoric. Among the factors contributing to his rise to the bench of the second highest court of the land are his sharp intellect, his studious commitment, and certainly his dedication. But I think most of all, Judge Minor has had the benefit of three great sources of inspiration that have fueled his drive to what I call excellence. There was the inspiration of his father, an immigrant who arrived penniless on the streets of New York and who worked his way through law school, setting an example for all of us in this room, indeed all Americans, to follow. There was the inspiration of his family, especially his wife, Jackie, who has stood by his side and who has herself set the highest standards of public office. And there is, lastly, the inspiration of his nation, the United States of America, and its system of laws, not men, which rewards excellence as much as it honors freedom and justice. And some would say that a career like that of Judge Minor's could happen only in America. And I can only add that it takes an American like Judge Minor to build such a career. And Roger, I know you feel it is a great honor to have been selected by President Reagan to serve in this prestigious capacity, and it most certainly is. But Roger, we, your friends and neighbors that are gathered here today, including those that could not be here, we really have the real honor of having a man we so deeply admire and respect appointing to this most prestigious position. You make us all very, very proud to be Americans. And Justice Oaks, you mentioned Judge Minor may have found a final permanent job here in this second court, but let me tell you, as someone quite close to the President of the United States and a man called Meese, this may not be the final job. And for you people who aspire to move up to the second court someday, you know, in that court that Justice Oaks said is infallible only because it's final, could be an opening there too, and I'd like to be involved in that someday. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Congressman Solomon. And our next, but last, but by no means least, speaker is the Honorable Alphonse D'Amato, Senator from the United States Senator from the state of New York.
May it please the court, I'm
deeply privileged and honored to be here with you, your distinguished judiciary, so many good friends that I see. What a magnificent turnout on a beautiful Saturday. It is a tribute to the judge and the fact that people think so much of him, of his work, and the tribute that has been accorded by this elevation to probably the nation's second most prestigious court, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. It's also a tribute to the fact that no one wants Jackie Minor to be annoyed at that. I was struck by some of the comments with respect to the judge's brilliance, his humor, his dedication, his wit, all of those things that are so important in the selection process. I was struck by the fact as I entered to see so many of my good colleagues in the Congress, Congressman Fish, who was served on the Judiciary Committee and is a ranking member of that committee, the entire nation. My good friend, Congressman Solomon, myself. I want you to know you should listen to our distinguished judges, and I do. Judge Foley, Harry picked you, he knew what he was doing. And I want to leave you with a few thoughts, Roger, that the judge reminded me of. Remember, they all love you now, all your colleagues. They think of you as erudite, one of them. But remember what Judge Foley said when you reverse your friends and former associates, what they'll be thinking about that dumb you-know-what. I can understand Ham Fish, myself, Jerry Solomon, and others who are here. But Jackie Minor, I want you to tell me how it is you were able to get Mayor Whalen here, our District Attorney Saul Greenberg here, Sheriff Infante here, and to top it off, Counsel to the Governor, Mr. Crotty here. Now that is indeed quite a tribute. It really is a tribute to not only Jackie, but to the deep respect and affection that we have. And the fact that we're so proud that one of our own, the son of an immigrant, was here on this magnificent day to help install his son into this position of trust and of confidence. The fact that only here, in this magnificent land, can we see a young man grow, flourish in the community of Hudson, to assume this responsible position. Will be sitting along with Judge Oaks and his colleagues, and yes, who may someday even ascend to the ultimate in terms of our judiciary. And so we join with you in celebration and in tribute. Congratulations and many years of successful service and good health.
Thank you, Senator. The court now recognizes Stephen Flanders, Circuit Executive of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, who is backed up by our clerk, Elaine Goldsmith, for the reading of the Presidential Commission. Steve?
Ronald Reagan, President of the United States of America, to all who see these presents, greeting. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the wisdom, uprightness, and learning of Roger J. Minor of New York, I have nominated, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, do appoint him United States Circuit Judge for the Second Circuit, and do authorize and empower him to execute and fulfill the duties of that office according to the Constitution and laws of the said United States, and to have and to hold the said office with all the powers, privileges, and emoluments to the same of right appertaining unto him, the said Roger J. Minor, during his good behavior. In testimony whereof, I have caused these letters to be made patent and the seal of the Department of Justice to be hereunto fixed, done at the city of Washington, this 22nd day of July in the year of our Lord, 1985, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 210th. The commission is signed by Ronald Reagan, President, and Edwin Meese III, Attorney General.
Thank you, Steve. The oath of office to Judge Minor will now be administered by Mr. Abram Minor, and after taking the oath and being robed, Judge Minor will take his seat for the first time on the Court of Appeals bench. I may say, if at that time the audience wishes to break into applause, nobody will be held in contempt.
May it please this honorable court, may I be excused for a moment as to admonish my youngest grandson to be quiet. Please follow. I, Roger J. Minor, do solemnly swear.
I, Roger J. Minor, do solemnly swear.
That I will administer justice without respect to persons.
That I will administer justice without respect to persons.
And do equal right to the poor and to the rich.
And do equal right to the poor and to the rich.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me as a United States Circuit Judge.
all the duties incumbent upon me as a United States Circuit Judge.
According to the best of my abilities and understanding.
According to the best of my abilities and understanding.
Agreeably to the Constitution and the laws of the United States.
Agreeably to the Constitution and laws of the United States.
And that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
And that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I am happy and proud to call upon my new colleague, Judge Roger J. Minor of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals.
Judge Oaks and colleagues on the bench, fellow judges in the audience, federal and state, Senator D'Amato, Congressman Solomon and Fish, Mayor Whalen, brothers and sisters at the bar, my family and friends. It is a great honor for me to occupy a seat on this distinguished court. My wife, Jackie, shares this honor with me, of course. She's made many sacrifices for me, and it's because of her that I'm here. She's a woman of formidable talents, having pursued several successful careers. Although I am constrained to avert my eyes from such things, I am given to understand that her political talents are especially formidable. In any event, I can say no less of her than the man who appointed me to this position instead of his wife. She's my everything. We are very grateful to all of you for taking the time to attend this ceremony today. Many of you have traveled long distances to be with us. Our four sons also covered quite a bit of ground to be here. Larry from his job in Lake Elsinore, California, Ronald from the Florida Institute of Technology at Melbourne, and Ralph and Mark from Michigan State University at East Lansing. We are very proud of all of them. And it's expensive, too. We are especially grateful to our speakers, whose kind words and wise advice are much appreciated. To Howard Munson, a great Chief Judge of the Northern District, a great friend, and a fine companion. It was a pleasure to serve under his leadership. To Ralph Lancaster of Maine, a lawyer of such outstanding reputation that he was called upon to represent the United States government before the International Court of Justice. Justin Vigdor, the distinguished president of the New York State Bar Association, who came down from Rochester to be with us today. Len Weiss, with whom I did share the chambers in Brooklyn, and that was during a subway strike some years ago. Luckily, he had a car, and the whole mess was somewhat ameliorated by that fine dinner with Mayor Koch at Gracie Mansion. Len spoke at that dinner, too, and he's always known as a great speaker, and he was able to hold his remarks down today more than he usually does. The mayor wanted to know when he was going to get finished when we were down here. Jim Foley, my mentor in the district court, who taught me more about the federal judiciary and the human condition than I ever learned from any book. He also taught me to stay away from Saratoga in August. Ham Fish, whose friendship Jackie and I have valued for more than 20 years, and we well remember his second campaign for Congress. I was practicing law in Hudson at the time, and another candidate interested in the Republican nomination came around seeking our support. We told him that we felt Ham was the man, and we never regretted the choice. The other candidate was G. Gordon Liddy. Jerry Solomon, a longtime friend and my own congressman, I always remember the great stem winder of a speech he made before the Senate Judiciary Committee in support of my nomination to this bench. And of course, to Senator Al D'Amato, who has spoken in my behalf on many occasions and in many places. I'm grateful indeed for all his encouragement, support, and confidence. In recognizing Al D'Amato at my confirmation hearing, Senator Thurmond, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, remarked that Al is held in high esteem by his colleagues in the Senate. It seems to me that there are many New Yorkers who hold him in high esteem indeed, and I am privileged to be one of them. I'm grateful to Jim Oakes, my new colleague, for coming down from the Green Mountain state of Vermont to convene this court in Albany for the very first time in history. I have said on many occasions that I am a great admirer of his and very much look forward to serving with him on the circuit court. And thanks also to my former comrade in arms in the Northern District, Neil McGurn, who has graciously joined us here on the bench. I take this occasion to extend my heartfelt thanks to the President, who not only appointed me to this court, but who was kind enough to call and chat about my nomination, to Attorney General Meese and Presidential Counsel Fielding, to Senator Thurmond and his right-hand man, Duke Short, for expediting the process of advice and consent, and to Congressman Jack Kemp, George Wortley, Ben Gilman, Sam Stratton, and to Senator Pat Moynihan. Thanks are also due to a number of old and new friends in Washington for all their help. Art Jutton, Nick Hayes, Dennis Howe, Helen Cameron, Commissioner Dennis Patrick, and Ambassadors Jean Girard and Faith Whittlesey. Special thanks to John O'Mara and Bill Powers for their steadfastness, to Dean Jim Simon and the faculty at New York Law School for their assistance in many things. And Jim, I'm the Second Circuit appointee from the school. John M. Harlan was the first, and you know what happened to him? To my former professor at New York Law School, Roy Cohn, who taught and still teaches loyalty, commitment, and kindness, as well as the law. It's a special privilege to call him friend. To Roy's partner, Dr. Tom Boland, whose life exemplifies the best qualities of charity and justice. To my chamber staff, to Joe Scully, to the GSA, the marshals, Lance Wheeler, my family, to all who helped with the arrangements, to all of you, thank you, thank you. And one final thank you. 4 years ago, I publicly thanked Dr. Stanley Bardwell of Hudson for certifying to the government that I was mentally competent to serve as a federal judge. He has made the same certification this year, and I thank him again. I still am afraid to ask what standard he uses. As I take this seat, I am mindful of the important responsibilities I am assuming. I approach those responsibilities with a firm resolve to bring to each case an open mind and a sense of fairness. As a lawyer and trial judge, I have long been aware of the overriding concerns of litigants for impartiality and objectivity in the decisional process. Those concerns will continue to be of paramount importance to me as an appellate judge. I bring to this court a fierce desire to do justice in accordance with the oath I have just taken, and to use all the diligence, all the skills, and all the effort I can bring to bear in carrying out my judicial duties. I also bring an awareness of the constitutional and pragmatic limitations on the role of the federal judiciary in our society. Our Constitution establishes a separation of powers among the branches of the federal government, as well as a deliberately measured allocation of authority between the states and the federal government. We judges are constrained by our oaths to respect the restraints on judicial power envisioned by this system. I believe that compliance with the constitutional mandate requires strict adherence to the interpretive function of the courts and a healthy respect for the American political process. As to pragmatic constraints, Judge Alfred Conkling Cox of Utica, who served as a judge of the Northern District before his appointment as a circuit judge in 1902, said, "We have yet to learn that there are some inconveniences, annoyances, and even faults which cannot be remedied by law." It seems to me that the lesson taught by Judge Cox has not yet been learned, and that it is still an all too popular misconception that every conflict must find a remedy in a court of law. This misconception has fostered an ever-expanding federal court jurisdiction, and now we face a massive judicial gridlock occasioned by the overburdening of the federal courts. It should be apparent that there are only so many things that courts can do. My immigrant grandparents referred to this great nation as the Golden Land. They never ceased to be awed by the freedoms, the opportunities, and the individual liberties that were available to them in their adopted country. Only in America, they would say. As naturalized citizens, they had special feelings of love, support, and devotion for this country, and they passed those feelings on to their children and grandchildren. I wish that they could be here today to witness this ceremony and to say, once again, only in America. I conclude with some assurances. When I first became a judge 10 years ago, my father told me never to forget that I was a lawyer. He has reminded me of that admonition frequently since that time. Whenever he gets an adverse decision from some judge, he reminds me of it. I assure him again that I shall never forget that I practiced law. Since I was appointed to the circuit court, Judge Foley has advised me on more than one occasion never to forget that I was a trial judge. I think that his advice comes whenever any district judge is reversed by the circuit. And I assure him that I shall never forget that I was a trial judge. To my new colleagues, I pledge my loyalty and esteem, as well as my respect for the traditions of the court and the principle of collegiality. I reserve the right to dissent, however. To all of you, I pledge to do whatever is necessary to merit your confidence, to be worthy of this great court, and to assure justice for all, the brightest promise of this golden land. Thank you.
That was a grand speech, fine remarks, Roger, and we welcome you. A prayer for our country recited by Rabbi Philip Schlenker will be followed by America the Beautiful, sung by Mrs. Vera Racino, not by coincidence, an aunt of Jackie Miner's. And the ceremony will then conclude with the singing of God Bless America, with us all participating as we wish. Rabbi Schlenker.
Let us pray. Our God and God of our fathers, we invoke thy blessing upon our country, on the government of this republic, the President of these United States, and all who exercise just and rightful authority. Do thou instruct them out of thy law, that they may administer all affairs of state in justice and equity, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, right and freedom may forever abide among us. Unite all the inhabitants of our country, whatever their origin and creed, into a bond of true brotherhood, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions which are our country's glory. May this land under thy providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting men in peace and helping to fulfill the vision of our prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall men learn war anymore. For all men, both great and small, shall know the Lord. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of the ceremonies, please exit the courtroom as directed by the United States Marshals. Also, the judge and Mrs. Minor invite you to enjoy the refreshments just outside and to visit with them in the judge's chambers.
The court now stands adjourned.
I couldn't do it with music, no less without.
extend my heartfelt thanks to the President, who not only appointed me to this court, but who was kind enough to call and chat about my nomination. As I take this seat, I am mindful of the important responsibilities I am assuming.
Others, meanwhile, were mindful that even greater things may be in store for Minor, predicting he could be a U.S. Supreme Court Justice.
As someone quite close to the President of the United States and a man called niece, this may not be the final job.
For now, however, someone must be found to fill Minor's old federal court job. State Supreme Court Justice Conchalakas is being touted as the probable successor.